With expectations that LRT will move forward in some form or another, there are still a lot of concerns about the existing design and how we got to this point. You may have seen Carl Turkstra's article in The Spectator earlier this week. Gaspare Bonomo is also a civil engineer who's been crunching numbers, and he joins us in studio today. Welcome, sir, to City Matters.
Thank you.
We didn't chat last week, but you certainly sat through the vast majority of that very long meeting that we all suffered through over 13 and a half hours. Before you and I get started, Donna Skelly on Talk Radio this day is suggesting the environmental assessment will pass, that the votes are there. As you heard, Andrea Horvath has sent an email from her office to the Premier of Ontario. We have a variety of articles that have been flooding us. Today's newspaper, a perfect example. Do we want a city or sprawl? Will City Hall give me a chance to be proud? Get on board or get sidelined? We want to live beside a vibrant city. LRT study should be debunked. LRT feeling like too many other issues in this city. As you saw Larry Deanne on Monday, possibly on this program, I think he went down a list of A, B, C, D, E, why we should build LRT, and E was, we will look silly across the country. So, folks, you know the debate. Gaspare is here to point out several key issues we touched upon in that opening, that there are still many questions and there are many opinions about what is the best route, what is not the best way of engineering this. You're a civil engineer. You took a look at this in the beginning and went, what, gasp?
Well, originally, of course, I wasn't against the LRT. It's always good to have a rapid transit in the city. But when I started to look in detail, specifically because they are going to replace two lanes on King Street. We have two arteries going to Hamilton, Main, and King. And King Street, there's 25,000 vehicles a day that travel on King Street. And to plug it up with 2 lanes of LRT, where's that traffic going to go? So I was concerned about that. Then the closer that you look at the plan, there's 2 T's and there's 2 pinch points. Pinch points meaning you can't get through, and a T means you have to go left or right, and you can't be traveling straight. Now, that makes no sense when you're doing a transportation design. Traffic has to flow if you want it to work, and we don't have a design where the traffic actually flows. So my concern is that it's actually going to create a huge congestion. I mean, the city's just starting to get going, and there's a lot going on. The last thing you want to do is plug it up where vehicles just can't move.
You realize that it sounds like a compromise is in the works. Councillor Whitehead has suggested he's fully on board if the province commits to going to Eastgate, which was the original design. McMaster to Eastgate, 2 destination points. The suggestion is, and I know Councillor Marula gets upset when we say this, but Queenston Traffic Circle isn't the best destination point in the world. Does that make any difference to your concerns at all if the province does the compromise to get it back to Eastgate? Does it make it any better in your eyes?
We're still going to have the congestion issues that exist. That's not going to resolve that. I mean, stopping at Queenston Traffic Circle made no sense whatsoever. Eastgate is more of a destination point. But further than that, we've got the GO station coming at Confederation Park. Like, perhaps it should go right to the GO station so we can connect with the GO train. I mean, that should be one of the major things when you're designing a transportation plan, is that you do those connections, because people are going to live in Hamilton, but they're going to have to work in Toronto, and we haven't looked at that. But extending it to Eastgate's still not going to fix the problems that exist right now with the fact that we're using 2 lanes on King Street. 1 lane on each road would have been a better alternative, so you still have traffic flowing. A plan is supposed to encompass all modes of transportation, where this one here is just saying, get out of the way, I'm coming through, and it affects everyone. Pedestrians are not going to walk along King Street when there's two trains coming in either direction. There'll be bells ringing because there's going to be some pedestrian walkways, and at intersections you'll probably hear some horns, and it's just not a place where you want to be with your family.
What is the overall picture here? Is it our geography? I mean, people are singing the praises of what Kitchener-Waterloo is doing, but Kitchener-Waterloo doesn't have to deal with an escarpment that separates the lower and the upper city, and to some respect, the suburbs as well.
Absolutely. We've got a confined space. We've got the escarpment on one side, the lake on the other. So you can't just expect traffic to disperse itself and find other routes, especially if you're looking at Dundas. There's only two roads that will take you from Dundas into Hamilton, and this LRT is going to cause some obstructions there, and it's going to be difficult for everyone to move. So you have to look at what you have and then fit a design to fit what you have. And I think that it's just been more of a generic thing, and no one has really looked at the constraints that exist for Hamilton. With Kitchener, they have actually split tracks when there wasn't enough room for the tracks and a lane of traffic. So that's why they have these split tracks. Kitchener also has a much wider corridor. Sometimes it's wide open, goes in behind houses. It's a totally different design, and it connects Kitchener with Waterloo, and those are the key things with that one. And then from there they go to Cambridge via bus rapid transit. So it is a totally different design. Very, very costly, and I understand that the college there in Kitchener did not approve for bus passes, so 57% of the students voted not to get a bus pass. So it looks like even the students are not wanting to take the train there.
The McMaster Student Union does support what's going to be happening because there will be a linkage for their students, and they were here on City Matters to say that students get it, and I thought I read just the other day that the vast majority of students who need the transportation went for the bus pass, use a bus pass. They have great GO connections, as you know, on that campus, and it would make sense for LRT to end at McMaster. It's just the rest of the line where all the questions come in. An extra bridge over the 403, is it needed or not needed? If you do the King Street route, it definitely is needed, but at what cost? I think the most important thing I want to discuss with you is the pinch points. Because of that overall picture of geography in Hamilton, the east-west narrowness, the proponents are saying, of course, LRT is going to take cars off the road, not misplace the cars or disperse the cars. It's actually going to be cleaner and efficient. Ridership will take off from day one, we're told. I get the sense you don't buy into all of those arguments.
Not at all. Every LRT system I've looked at has park and rides. You have to make it convenient for people to take the train. So even stopping at McMaster, it's great. The students will love it. I can see why. I mean, you've got transportation that's right at your doorstep. But it should have continued down Coots and stopped perhaps at York and Olympic Drive there, so that you could put in a massive parking lot. You can pick up people coming in from Dundas, Waterdown, Flamborough, Burlington. You're giving them a place to park the cars and take the train. But McMaster has zero parking, and it's $20 a day if you happen to find a spot. So stopping there is ideal for the students, but going another 1.5 kilometers down Coots would have improved that plan again somewhat. But then we're still going to have the problems when we go downtown. We still got the pinch areas. One of them is between Queen and Hess. You can't get through, which means that the traffic now is going to all go up Hess Street. Now we've got this nice Hess Village there where we've got all these patios, and now we're going to tell all the traffic, well, this is your route because you can't get through. And it also happens again at between James and John Street. We've got another one that they call a pinch point. Again, I've never heard of that in any transportation plan. Perhaps in tailoring, a seamstress, whatever, might talk about a pinch point, but not when you're talking traffic flow. And then, of course, the T's, there's 2 of them, one at International Village. And then I just found out, I didn't realize that this was happening, but at the Delta around Gage Park, there's also going to be another T, which means everyone's got to scatter. That's on King Street and traveling west.
Let me play a clip for you, because this is another argument that is being used for this proposal. It's Ted McMeekin last week during that all-day coverage, and you probably saw that he came in and he stuck around for 3-4 hours listening to the presentations from the delegations. We had the opportunity out in the foyer to interview him, and basically my question to him was about, is this our only chance at the $1 billion? Here's his response.
Our position as a provincial government is the transit funding was provided to meet the request of the City of Hamilton. That money's in an account. It will, in all likelihood, go to another municipality. There are, I understand, 7 of them out there who are hyperventilating wanting to access another $1 billion. You know, Hamilton can then do what it wants. But it's got to go back to the drawing board. We got to start those discussions over again.
And so this evening's environmental assessment vote, which again Donna Skelly says appears to have the votes at this stage, we still have to do an operating agreement with Metrolinx down the road if the EA is passed this evening. But you've seen Ted McMeekin, former minister, I believe he's now he's Kathleen Wynne's, I can't remember the official name, but he's in Kathleen Wynne's office. He has had the ear of Kathleen Wynne when it comes to the Hamilton file for several years. He is suggesting Hamilton can do what they want if they turn down the EA tonight. Hamilton can do what they want, which opens the door to something other than LRT.
That's correct, yes.
But we'd have to go to the end of the line, and how many years would the end of the line be? So based on what Mr. McMeekin has said, what are your thoughts?
Okay, that's been a concern of some of the councillors, the ones that are not quite yet committed.
Is that almost a scare tactic?
It is, yeah, because actually I've got a copy here of a transcript of a media scrum that occurred April 20th, so only 5 or 6 days ago, where the Premier was quite clear that we want to build transit in Hamilton to improve quality of life. So, and she says if the decision on the LRT is not made, that's okay. We are still going to get money for transit. So it doesn't just disappear. It doesn't appear from what she's saying that we go to the back of the list that it was our decision to make a choice on which we would like, bus rapid transit, light rail transit, and as long as we're spending the money on transit, I believe that money will be there.
Politically, it does make sense for Kathleen Wynne, who's made it very clear she's not going anywhere, and she's going to fight for what she believes in. There's all kinds of other areas and topics, but certainly the Liberal government, along with Metrolinx, has a plan for moving people in the GTHA and beyond.
Yes.
For us to say no to LRT, in the end, they can't afford not to have us involved in whatever shape or form it is, because they want this to run to Niagara Falls. They want all of this to run to Barrie. They want it to run as far east as people are living.
Yes.
So it's almost as if, I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
No,
but
I believe the money is there. There's a proposal to go A line, B line, BRT, and just complete the whole blast network. The blast network connects Waterdown, Ancaster, goes right out to 50 Road in Stony Creek. It'll connect the harbor with the airport. It makes so much more sense. And it's $500 to $600 million, and you've created a dynamic, rapid transit system. Right now, by running 11 kilometers along the corridor, not feeding into it, not providing parking for people, you have really done nothing. You're just causing congestion because those cars are not going to find a place to go. If you go with bus rapid transit, you can have 2 lanes, one on King Street, one on Main Street, without incurring tremendous amount of cost, and make it so that there's still room for the cars, and make it a pedestrian-friendly area where you don't have a lot of noise activity. Buses now, there's a lot of alternatives. They've got clean energy gas buses that are 97, 98% efficient, which are less expensive to run. But they've come so far with electric buses. If you look in the Netherlands, they're using these electric buses, and right now the technology for hydrogen cells is amazing. There's going to be 100 of them ordered for the 2020 Olympics. So we've moved a long way with hydrogen. Hydrogen comes from water. You burn hydrogen and you get water back. So at one time, the LRT with the electrical gave us the only clean option we had. But now that option, there's other options available. We don't have to look at it simply for that reason. I've looked at Calgary, Edmonton.
Proponents would say this is a proven option.
Actually, I've read in it, it's always been a very costly way of doing things, and the only thing that you can prove is that it doesn't cause any environmental issues, but not that it's been proven to be a very successful way to move people. In fact, there isn't an LRT in North America that recovers its operating costs. The one that comes very close or is up there is New York City. New York City moves 7.5 million people a day, and they recover 67, 68% of the cost to operate. I mean, that's considered very efficient, but when you consider the other 32% of 7.5 million people, that's a $2 billion a year subsidy that's required for a system that works well. And in the U.S., both the state and federal governments recognize that public transit is a service. It's not made to make money, and so they will fund that to those cities, so those cities are able to operate without having to raise taxes. But unfortunately, here, Kathleen Wynne's been very clear to Toronto: we'll build it, but you have to operate it. And Toronto next year, I can tell you, they're going to have huge problems with their subsidy issues. There's two lines that they just built recently, and they've identified that one of them is going to cost them $39 million, the other one another $61 million. So there's another $100 million that are going to be short next year on their budget. Now, I've also looked at the cost of the LRT for Kitchener, and I would think that the same thing applies here. And Kitchener's LRT, actually, the city of Waterloo signed with the contractor a deal worth $1.9 billion to build it and then to operate and maintain it for 30 years. So they've raised their taxes 11%, was phased in over 8 years, and now that didn't clear up any of their infrastructure issues. So now they're raising their water and sewer rates between 40 and 60% by 2026. So all this, that it's going to help with infrastructure. Actually, in Hamilton, it will be zilch, because it was clear the staff at the GIC meeting said that our infrastructure along King Street is great. It has another 80 years worth of life. So
well, we've gone from Sam Marula tweeting $800 million worth of infrastructure. It's down to $200 million worth of infrastructure. So we would be jeopardizing that $200 million in infrastructure if we turn this down. But let's focus on Hamilton, because the proponents are saying we don't know what the maintenance costs are going to be at this point in time until we negotiate and actually see it running. But everybody has been signing on because they see the real estate values and business and economic growth as counterbalancing those maintenance costs. So what do you say to those proponents who believe that a structured LRT is going to bring developers who have already signed on, who already know that they've signed on and are sending letters and are in support of the Chamber of Commerce stance? When I read Mr. Terkstra's viewpoint about how that ramp into the off of King Street for
Yes.
the underground parking garage. I'll get it together. When he suggested that was going to be closed. But the fact of the matter is, the art gallery and the operators of the convention center stood there with Keenan Loomis in support of this LRT.
Again, a lot of people are missing the details of the design. Again, always sounds good when you say you're going to get a robust transit system. Who would say no to that? But when you look at the details, it's not a functional plan. It's not going to work. It's just going to cause congestion. It's going to make New York City, I think, look pretty good once we see what happens here.
You've got two, because I want to allow you to get everything in here that we need to get in.
Okay.
Points 3 and 4, because you've been distributing this information to City Hall.
Yeah.
Ridership numbers will be too low for the next 30 plus years, and I believe that ties into what you call a false and misleading benefits case analysis, which leads back to what I was just asking you about the realty. Let's discuss those 2 points.
Okay, let's talk. If we talk about the misleading benefits case analysis, this was done in 2010. And what you do when you're proposing a transportation system, you have to look if there's some benefits in doing that. The biggest benefit comes from saving people time. So if you're putting in a transportation system, you're not saving anyone time, it's hard to justify the expense. So what they do is they come up with this proposal where they try and calculate how much time they save each person that's taking the train, and then it's over a 30-year period. And then they use a dollar amount for their time, and they come out with a benefit. Now there are other benefits, but they end up being minor compared to the time one. So that becomes a significant part.
In fact, no time.
Well, that's what happens.
Is being saved with this proposal that I can see in all the detail.
And that's what happened.
But the proponents will say nobody's going to have a bus roll by on the B line and have to wait another 20 minutes for the next bus because these cars will handle the demand.
Well, I can tell you, I've been looking, Volvo's building this frame for a bus. It's a double articulating bus. I mean, we do have a lot of just straight routes, so I think it would work well. It'll hold 300 people. So there are other alternatives that will hold the number of people you're talking about. Or
remember
with
when the articulated buses first came out and we all looked at them and went, what's this accordion?
But seem to move fairly well now.
And those were 25 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And
so
they ran along King Street.
Exactly. So there are other alternatives there if you want to look for them. They exist. And so a double articulating bus, nothing wrong with that. And then if you need more service, then the headway. It's a lot easier to increase the headway with BRT than LRT. LRT is a little bit, you have to leave a little bit more time and space between them. But no, so we can move just as many people. There's cities like Brisbane, Australia,
yeah.
And then there's Colombia they swear by BRTs. They're not using LRTs. So no, you can move a lot of people with bus rapid transit.
Let me ask you one final question. This is all based on, even the benefits case is based on ridership. We know the city is growing. We know we have millennials, especially coming into the downtown area, the Beasley neighborhood, Durand, and they have different values and different needs and wants than somebody who still owns a two-car garage somewhere in Ancaster or on the West Mountain. You're suggesting ridership isn't going to grow at all, even though the city's population will be growing. And you make a very interesting point, because where is the population growth in Greater Hamilton?
The growth in Greater Hamilton, and I even looked at the 2016 ward boundary report. It's in the outskirts. Lancaster's going up 82%. When you looked in downtown Hamilton, it was very, very minuscule. I mean, if you get 2,000, 3,000 people happening, that's a lot. So we're not going to see a huge population growth. I mean, it looks like there's a lot going on. But I also looked in 2009 when we had no LRT, and there was 12 projects going on, and some of them 130 units, 150 units. So we've always had some significant projects going on in Hamilton. And the LRT is, if it just disappeared, those projects would continue. We've got people from Toronto now moving to Hamilton because the value's here for them. So the LRT is not going to make a difference. I'm just afraid that if you put it in and it plugs up the city, they're going to say, well, we can't live here, we can't move around, and you're going to lose some of those people. Now, regarding that benefits case analysis, when there was a memo that went around and actually indicated that the BRT was the optimum transportation plan for the city. But in brackets, it also said, but hasn't been released yet. And then when it was released, we got a report saying, no, the LRT will work for you. And I'm just wondering what happened with, it was pretty straightforward. The BRT was the choice. And when you look at the reports, there's been some numbers in there that are kind of misleading. They're saying that the LRT will travel through the city at 33 and 35 kilometers per hour. And that's including the stop time, and that's the speed of a subway normally. In the city, the LRT is only expected to go between 20 and 25 kilometers per hour. That question was asked in Waterloo, and that's what the answer was. And I've looked at other plans, and they all, those are the numbers that are used. And actually, there's a footnote in that report that indicates that it shouldn't be 34, it should be 25. So I'm not sure what happened there that created this. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a problem today. We wouldn't be actually dealing with this. We'd be looking at bus rapid transit. For the ridership we have, that one makes more financial sense. With Ottawa, they waited till they had 10,000 peak riders before they looked at the LRT, because otherwise you're just throwing money away if you do it beforehand. Hamilton, the B line's 444. They're going to absorb another 1,200 off of the other routes. So we're only at 1,600. So you're like 20% of where you need to be in order to justify, let's put in an LRT.
We've got to run. If we were a cartoon, Gaspare, we'd have two clouds over our head full of question marks. That's where we are on the day when the environmental assessment is expected to be voted on. We still don't know what the result will be, although it sounds like there's some sort of compromise working in the background. I doubt we'll hear about that tonight at although you never know. There could be a motion or a notice of motion. There may be delay because there are motions coming. We don't know. Stay with Cable 14 this evening, beginning at 5 o'clock.